I'm guessing my hoped for dinner for four with Miss I, Dwayne and Dimar isn't going to happen. As Dave F. reported from Vegas last night, the residual takeaway from last week's trade, and the lingering feelings from Dwayne Casey's sudden dismissal in May, is that Miss I is definitely off their Christmas card lists for now. DeMar DeRozan signs a fan's ball during a USA basketball training camp in Las Vegas yesterday. John Locker, The Associated Press. Too bad, actually. Each of the men involved in the affairs are good men who've always wanted to do the best for the franchise, the city, themselves, the country, and it didn't end well in either situation. That's the way sports is, sadly. It seldom ends well when strong personalities are involved, and it sure didn't end particularly well here. Will that change with the passage of time? Will they eventually come to at least some peaceful coexistence so they can at least celebrate the successes they had here together? Article continued. Bella, we don't know, to tell you the truth. I'd normally say, yeah, it'll all wash out in the months and years to come, but in these cases, I'm not entirely sure. Too bad. I know losing to Cleveland 3 years in a row gnaws at the fans and was the perfect tipping point for major change. Whether that change is good with a first-year head coach and a guy coming off a 9-game season with probably 1 year left on his deal remains to be seen. I don't know, you don't know, no one knows. But what we do know, and with that passage of time it will sink back in, I certainly hope, is that the last 5 years provided more good times, more exhilarating moments than any half-decade stretch in franchise history. It hasn't ended well, doesn't mean it shouldn't be remembered fondly. And that's because of the contributions of all three of them: Ujiri for putting the band together and letting it find its style and tempo, Casey for his unwavering belief in himself, his players, his program, and DeRozan for always getting better, never once cheating the game, his team, his franchise, himself. I think that's gotta be the takeaway. Now, Kyle will talk today and heaven knows what he's going to say, but in the name of all that's good in the world, can this story be over after the USAB camp and we can take 5 or 6 weeks off from NBA and Raptors drama? Article continued. Below that'd be nice, wouldn't it? I've got some FIBA stuff to look at, some loafing to do, and who knows what else will come up. I see the Blue Jays have been up to some trade shenanigans this week, including dealing Sungwino, and part of the ruckus was that his buddy and translator Eugene had to go, too. So, a translator story. Back in the co-year, the Raptors employed Mank Bader, a rather gigantic, but otherwise nice fellow. Mank's English was as you'd expect from someone born and raised in Mongolia, so he had his own translator, a guy by the name of Jimmy Chong, who was most memorable for his somewhat voracious appetite. Well, one night Mank's playing and not playing particularly well, and Co is constantly screaming, "Mank! Box out! Box out! Mank! Mank! Box out!" to no avail. Kevin turns to Jimmy in his seat behind the bench, tells him to make Mank shape up or at least listen. Jimmy gets up, leans over and says, in perfect English, "Mank, box out." To his everlasting credit and to our great surprise, Co did not kill him. He did, however, look askance at Jimmy and said, "I could have told him that," with an expletive thrown in just for fun. Always room for some more mail. There's still some for this week that I'm puttering through, but if you click on ask.thestar.ca and drop a line, I'll come up with some kind of answer to your query. By every report I've read, Yahap has been one of the good guys on a Blue Jays team that seems, entirely from the outside, to have more than a few unlikable sores, and if my colleague are suggesting they'll cheer for him when he pitches for the Yankees, I suppose I can, too. It's also quite nice that there are all kinds of suggestions that once he becomes a free agent again that he's just as likely as not to come back to Toronto. I wonder, though, does a team that's really going nowhere and is obviously years away from battling with the big boys in its own division, let alone the rest of the American League, really need a starter in his mid-30s, as good a guy as he may be and as good a pitcher as he's been? And while I have no doubt of the accuracy of the reporting that says Hap would look at a return to Toronto, do we think that's truly in his best interests at this stage of his career, and might not there be a contender who'd come calling? No, as good as that story is, can't a case be made that the Blue Jays have to finally decide to get younger and start the long road back to respectability rather than hang on to vestiges of the recent past? Just asking.